Okay, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folari. On the political scene, different scenarios all over the place, depending on where you're at. This morning, we'll be stopping over in Rivers State because the primaries there, legislative and governorship primaries in Rivers State, has become something of a debacle. It started out, okay enough. Generally speaking, two main parties in contention in Rivers State. Of course, the machinery of APC in Rivers State, headed by Rotimi Amechi, Transport Minister, and then there's Senator Magnus Abe, who also would be governor, and he needs the primaries to become the flag bearer, but he is not the preferred candidate of apparently the leader of APC in Rivers State. And so when that primary was conducted, in fact, Senator Abe, I read somewhere, had just the one vote. However, Senator Abe is not satisfied, and actually it's been said that he conducted what is this now? A parallel primary. He conducted a parallel primary. However, they all headed to court. Senator Abe preferred the court method, and indeed he did get, a sort of a judgment restraining, but it can be quite complicated, and it's probably best to bring in a legal mind, a lawyer, to help us understand what the legal position is, since there was a High Court involved, there was an appeal court involved, and now the Supreme Court has been involved, and the Supreme Court has actually been quite stern in berating, as it were, a Court of Appeal in Rivers State. But we'll find out from our guest this morning, who is very, very knowledgeable, not just on the law, but also probably what's going on in Rivers State from a legal point of view, because he's also chairman of the Nigerian Bar Association in Rivers State. But what is your branch?
Omog branch in Rivers State.
The Omog branch.
Branches in Rivers State.
There are quite a number of branches. So, and also is associate professor of law at Rivers State University. Thank you very, very much for coming on, Richard.
Thank you very much.
Starting from ground zero, when there are problems, when there are contestations, when there are arguments, people are counseled, no self-help, head to the courts. The judiciary in Rivers State is in a for me, a strange position because in the very judiciary itself, you have them berating each other that you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have availed this particular party with your authority and that kind of thing. Can you explain to us, please, Prof, in a way so that we can understand it, how we got to this stage and how the judiciary has come to be involved, so much so that one of the parties is referring to APC as being in collusion with the judiciary?
Well, as you gave in your opening remarks, the APC in Rivers State, unlike the PDP, I think started off somewhat on a difficult note. The Honorable Minister for Transportation, who is the leader of the party and former governor of the state, clearly and expressly in private and in public at rallies expressed his position that he does not support the aspiration of one member of the party, who is distinguished Senator Magnus Abe. Mm-hmm. And these positions remained, polarized the party, and they kept doing things along different lines. You have one rally here by APC under one name. You have another rally on the same day elsewhere in the state, still APC. And they continued on that note until it got to the time for primaries. So in May, early May, when the World Congresses was to be held, which is the first process that elects delegates that will now elect local government delegates.
That's right.
And officers of the party who will now elect state officers of the party who will go into primaries to elect candidates. When that time came, people bought forms from across both sides of the divided party. And when it was time the day before the day for the primaries, the day for the Congress, the World Congress, attempts were made to assess the forms for which they paid, and only those on the Honorable Minister's side got form, and forms were not issued to those on the side of, on the other side of the divide.
Prompting the allegation that there was no election of delegates, they were hand-picked.
Exactly.
Although...
That prompted that allegation. So those who were excluded rushed to court and sought an intervention of the court to stop the process. We lawfully, as party members, paid for forms, and we are supposed to participate in this World Congress, and we have been excluded from it. That exclusion is unlawful, declare it unlawful, and declare the exercise void, and declare that the proper thing be done. While that was pending, the court was able to hear the matter and gave an injunction on the 11th of May.
That's the High Court?
The High Court of Rivers State gave an injunction on the 11th of May. On 10th of, that 11th of May, attempt was made to stop the court. Hoodlums entered the court premises, destroyed things, tried to stop the court from sitting, but somehow the court was able to, at the end of when police came in and quelled all that, the court was able to sit, and it granted that injunction, restraining the party from taking any other step pending the determination of the matter. While that was on, I think 2 days later or thereabout, the party purportedly went ahead and conducted local government congresses to elect local government officers for the party. And they moved on, you know. And the matter was reported to the High Court on the next date.
Because that's a direct infringement.
That is direct, exactly. It's direct infringement. And the party, in fact, what they did was reconduct the World Congress and conduct a local government Congress, or reconduct local government progress the next day. And by the next morning, Sunday morning, by 7 o'clock, they announced results for state Congress, that they have also elected state officers, all on that one side, while the court injunction was pending. So the court got report of this, and on 30th of May, it nullified all those congresses that were held in violation of the order. Now, the reasoning perhaps from the other camp is, okay, the court is talking about the Congress we held on so and so day, so let's go on and hold another Congress. Everybody is free to come and get form. But they forgot that the court said nobody should tamper with the matter before the court until the matter is determined. So holding another Congress is taking the carpet off the feet of the court and asking the court to go to hell. We are moving on with our process. So that was the position. They moved on, elected all the officers for ward, local government, and state, strictly on their own camp of the party, of the divided party. Then they approached the Court of Appeal, asking the Court of Appeal for 2 prayers: stay execution of this injunction, and stay proceeding in this case, pending the determination of the appeal that we have brought. And the Court of Appeal refused to stay proceedings, but strangely stayed execution of the injunction. And so they moved on with that to hold, finalize all the things they were doing, including holding of primaries and all that. The aggrieved party appealed against that ruling of the Court of Appeal, staying execution. They appealed to the Supreme Court, asking the court to declare that it was wrong of the Court of Appeal to have done so and all that. And that was the decision which you eventually had the Supreme Court given, in which the Supreme Court tongue-lashed the Court of Appeal.
Indeed.
That the Supreme Court has laid this precedent for a long time. You remember Ojukwu versus a military governor of Lagos State and all that. A party cannot be in contempt of court and approach the court for the court to help him to do more, and you do so. And the Supreme Court described the conduct of the Court of Appeal in granting that stay of execution as self-immolation and suicide. The judge used the expression harakiri, the Japanese expression harakiri, meaning suicide. So the Supreme Court tongue-lashed the Court of Appeal for doing so.
That's I see it in the papers as Nwoguje.
Yes. It tongue-lashed the Court of Appeal judges,
the Court of,
justices, yes, for doing so, and reaffirmed the position taken by the High Court judge.
Okay.
And agreed that it nullified the stay of execution that was granted by the Court of Appeal, restoring matters to 11th of May the way they were. That is on the High Court. But by the time the Supreme Court gave that judgment, the case had progressed at the High Court level, and the judge had concluded his hearing and given his judgment.
Okay, those kind of things are possible in the law?
Yes.
Okay.
So the judge had given his judgment, final judgment, in which he nullified all the Congress, initial Congress, nullified all the Congresses held subsequently in disobedience to the court order, and nullified the primaries that was held through the delegates who emerged from those contemptuous Congresses. So it nullified all of them, including the primaries and the product of the primary, which were all result of the contemptuous actions taken by the party. So that is the stage at which the matter is. Now, it was after that the Supreme Court gave his judgment on that interlocutory appeal, challenging the stay of execution. It confirmed. So for me, the Supreme Court reaffirmed the validity of the position of the High Court judge. That is what it did in that. And then used the opportunity to tongue-lash the Court of Appeal for misusing his power. It called it sacrilegious exercise of discretion and abuse of judicial discretion, and tongue-lash the party for carrying on the way it did. One of the justices summed it up as extreme stupidity and said that the party cannot be allowed to benefit from his stupidity.
Now, at this stage, we've heard from the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Where does the several interpretations of the pronouncement of the Supreme Court now come into it? Because I remember in the case of Lagos State back in the day with President Obasanjo asking for interpretation for what was written in English. Okay, this also was in English. Was it obscure? Was the language obscure?
No, it wasn't.
So that you can't understand it, so that you can now have multiple interpretations?
Multiple interpretation. No, it wasn't. Now, I think what they have tried to play with, parties who are interpreting and all that, what they have tried to play with is where the Supreme Court was dealing with a particular issue, the stay of execution that was granted by the Court of Appeal, which it has nullified. It has nothing to do with the main case. But at this time that you are giving that interpretation, the main case has ended, and the court has, in a final judgment, nullified all you did, including the primaries and the outcome of the primaries.
Yes.
So,
is there a state executive there, from what you are saying?
No,
is there actually
legally now there is no state executive.
From what you're saying.
There is no ward executive, there is no local government executive, there is no state executive.
Going strictly by the law and the pronouncement.
There is no candidate even for election.
So this is a problem, even though
the outcome of the judgment.
That is in the eyes of the law. All that you've said is in the eyes of the law.
Yes.
But there are parties in there that think that they now have a candidate, and that, naturally.
Yeah, now the party said it will hear from his legal advisor. And the legal advisor said, I have looked at the Supreme Court judgment. It does not affect our candidates. We can go ahead with what we have.
That is the National Legal Advisor or the River
APC
State?
National Legal Advisor. This party matters are central.
Okay.
So it's the APC Legal Advisor that said that. And INEC said, well, from what I read in the papers, I hope that is the fact. Either his publicity secretary or his spokesman said, we have studied the judgment where we do not see any order directing us to remove the name of candidates. Now, these two positions are interpreting the Supreme Court judgment on that interlocutory appeal, that particular issue that was sent to the Supreme Court. But they are not adverting their mind to the final judgment of a high court in that state that expressly nullified everything. And the fact that even though those things were said, what we call obiter, not the direct judgment is we nullify what the Court of Appeal did. It was wrong of them. Every other thing is like additional description and all that. So, not minding the fact that the totality of the Supreme Court judgment reaffirms the position of the High Court, which in any case at this stage has concluded and given final verdict on the matter. They are not adverting their mind to that. So INEC is simply looking at Section 87, Section 87 of 10 of the INEC Act, which says any participant in the primaries that is dissatisfied with the outcome of the primaries can apply to a court, and the court can make necessary orders. Then the party is also ignoring that High Court judgment and just saying, well, the Supreme Court dealt with a particular matter, it does not affect our candidates. But the truth again
So
is...
where are we then?
The truth is that you have a judicial division,
Exactly.
a judicial decision. A judicial decision takes the matter off the hands of what you think and what you do not think. And like you said this in the eyes of the law. What matters in everything in an organized society is the eyes of the law.
Indeed.
Because it is in the eyes of the law that Amici became governor in 2007.
Indeed. One moment, please, because we have a caller who's been holding on for a while, but I didn't want to stop because it seems a bit complicated. I didn't want to truncate it. Good morning, Mr. George, and thank you for holding on.
Thank you, Uncle Yori. Good morning to you and your guests.
Yes.
Good morning.
Uncle Yori, I must say I'm very disappointed at what is going on in Rivers State as it pertains Rotimi Amechi and Senator Abe. You are dealing with a violent governor who does not believe in free and fair elections. And you want to go and face him to take power from him with a divided house? That just cannot work. I expected that with the minister's experience, he would look at the situation with a view to what is likely or who is likely to give us the victory or put us at an advantage, not who he wants. Because that is the bone of contention here.
Right.
Senator Abe wants the seat. He is saying, no, you are not the right person because I do not like you. It should be whether he likes you.
Well, not exactly like that, I imagine, but the point is, he's not the preferred candidate.
That's the only way that they will have been able to face the government in power there. But as things are going now, I don't think they can get anywhere. I think the APC should just, this is one of the consequences of the late coming of Oshiomhole to leadership of the APC. When all these things were going on, there was nothing from leadership to tell it or to put a check to it. That's why it's exacerbated, and that is where, the matter has got to now. In truth, I don't think APC can do anything in Rivers State in 2019, and it's very, very sad. Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in, Mr. George, and hopefully we'll hear from other commentators as well, especially party members, because I'm curious to know how APC is going to, this is a knot, and it has to be untied. And that is the job of APC. How APC is going to untie this knot without cutting it?
If it understands that there is a knot.
Okay.
Because by the interpretation that has been given by its legal advisor to the party, there is no problem.
And Abe's side have promptly accused the spokesperson of,
of playing along with the honorable minister.
With the honorable minister, and conspiring with the judiciary. Now that's a very, very serious aspect.
Not with the judiciary. Abe's faction accused the party spokesman, the party legal advisor, of playing along with the honorable minister and the NWC.
Okay. Because they are the establishment.
Yes. Now they in turn accused the Abe faction accused the judiciary of working with the Abe faction. But you see what is interesting about it, and that's the point I was making, that it's about the law. It is by law that, let me just give those ordinary examples. It is by law that Right Honorable Chibuike Amechi did not participate in the election of 2007 and he became governor. Because in the eyes of the law, having been elected and returned, he was not changed. The attempt to change him did not follow the due process of law, so the law did not recognize any change. And why citizens saw Barrister Omehia on poster, and why campaigns went on with Barrister Omehia and people voted, we are voting for Barrister Omehia, they were actually voting for the person who is the person validly returned by the party, and that's how he became governor. Peter Obi was purportedly removed from office by the conduct of a general election in which Andy Oba emerged, Dr. Andy Oba emerged as governor. But at the end of the day, the Supreme Court said, look, there was no election in the eyes of the law. The seat was not vacant in the first place, so there could have been no election to that position. So what matters is in the eyes of the law.
In the eyes of the law.
So
one moment, please.
Yes.
Reverend Dominic, good morning.
Good morning, Yori.
Thank you for calling in.
Good morning to your guest.
Good morning.
Just to buttress the point of my brother.
Oh, Dominic, see if you can get back in again. That's the network for you. But right now, even the party, I think it's out there on public record, that the party has said that it's going to look at the matter, especially following from...
No, the party has actually announced, which is an admission, the party has actually announced that, okay, we are going to reconduct the congresses.
That is looking at...
But the party is saying, oh, the candidates that were elected by the void congresses are not affected.
And so what is the law going to say about that?
It's very simple. The very first principle, I think the very first attractive principle a law student learns in the university faculty is that you can't put something on nothing and expect it to stand. It will crumble. Given by a veritable Lord Denning in McFly versus USC. So you can't have candidates who were elected by spirits because there was no Congress, there was no delegate, and you had a delegate election, which is indirect primaries. So how did the candidates fall from heaven? Because you must have delegates who were elected. And the law said those people were not delegates, and that all the things that were done to purportedly call them delegates were not done in the eyes of the law, and that even the primary did not take place. Now, the reality that they need to deal with is that, as you speak, it's not about Abe faction and Amechi faction. There is now a judicial pronouncement to the effect that these persons were never elected and are not elected. They do not exist. So even as we progress to election in Rivers State, the election is between PDP and the other parties.
Because that's the way it's
sounding.
Because
the law does not see any candidate for APC.
But there is still time to fix this situation, is there?
There is a little window.
There's a little window.
Yes, between now and 17th of November.
Indeed. From the point of view of the law, as you have explained it, Richard, what then would be, and here I'm not concerned with either side, but going by the law, what can be done to rectify this situation from the point of view of APC? Of
APC. Now, you know, APC has two states in which they have this kind of imbroglio. Rivers State is slightly different from Zamfara.
One moment, sir. Can I just, let me get one of our viewers in, and then I'll come back to that explanation of what the prescription would be. Emmanuel in Surulere, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Emmanuel.
Good morning.
Good morning, Emmanuel.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Good morning to your guest also.
Good morning, Emmanuel.
The issues in Rivers State is critical. And it is quite funny when we see our leaders doing things that does not give credence to our laws and what the society hopes to gain.
Oh, so sorry.
There's something with the phones this morning.
He has to try to call back like Dominic.
Yes, see if you can call back in again. Yes, your prescription. So that in order to make this right in the eyes of the law now, what are the options open to APC?
There is fortunately still one option, unlike Zamfara, where there is no option because both primaries were cancelled. In Rivers State, parallel primaries were held. It's not correct to say that one primary was held in which one person had this and that. Parallel primaries were held on the same day by the two camps of the APC. In one of them, Architect Dele Cole emerged, which is the preferred candidate of the Honorable Minister. In the other one held by the Magnus Abe-led faction, Senator Magnus Abe emerged. In fact, on the day after National Working Committee met, First NEC met and said default process for APC primaries is direct primaries. And then subsequently there was a modification which NWC announced where any state that has harmonious agreement and all stakeholders agree they can conduct indirect. So APC used direct and indirect. In Lagos State they had direct primaries, for example. So on that day, once that pronouncement was made, the Honorable Minister's faction announced that they were going to have an indirect primaries. And the other faction, led by Senator Magnus Abe, announced that they were going to have direct primaries. Party members are going to elect whomever they like. So at the end of the day, on the day of primaries, 2 primaries were held. One,
2 different methods.
yes, one by delegates, those delegates grossed up from the congresses, etc. And the other one at all levels of the party, at all wards.
Indeed.
Members to elect.
I need to interrupt you again. I'm sorry to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
so because in Zaria, someone is in Zaria. Abiodun in Zaria. Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yes, what we are discussing this morning actually is. Yes, good morning. Yeah, what we are discussing this morning actually is very pathetic that we see our leaders, people who should lead this country, are behaving this way. The INEC that knows that the INEC knows that what we're talking about is this primaries is built around the congresses. And if the congresses have been nullified, automatically it should mean that the primary is nullified. So I think it's expected that the INEC will have, from their own point of view, saying that they didn't tell us to remove the names. It shouldn't come like that. But if eventually INEC has said that they say we shouldn't remove the name, I think it is expected that somebody from the parties should make that request to the court again. That's because if you don't pray for something, the court will not grant it.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's said that they should pray now that remove that name, so that we will not go later at the end of the day and we'll still come back to the same place that you didn't pray that we should remove the name.
Yes.
And we refused to remove the name. Now we have used a wrong a name. Let me just use the wrong name to go into the election. Eventually, he has won. Now start another round of legal battle from the beginning again. So if INEC has just said that you didn't request for us to remove the name, I expect somebody now from somewhere, from whatever, to go to the court again, and especially to the High Court where they nullify the congresses. Please remove this name. Let INEC know that this name is null and void. We cannot use it to go into the election.
All right. Thank you very much for. Thank you very much. I've got to go on a commercial break. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and still with us is Richard Aduche Wokocha, Associate Professor of Law and Chairman of one of the branches of the Nigerian Bar Association in Rivers. In fact, Omo branch. Just before we went, we're looking at the debacle, because it seems something of a legal debacle in Rivers State.
Yes.
Because as in the eyes of the law, from what you've explained to us, APC doesn't have a candidate yet.
It doesn't.
And Mr. George, one of our regular viewers, there are many of them, has called in and said that this is a dangerous situation. Now, Abiodun was speaking, and I think this is something that the technicalities of the law will come fully into play here. And I think Abiodun calling in from Zaria highlighted aspects of it. That
exactly.
There are no free gifts here. You have to ask for something.
You have to. There are 2 circumstances in which you can ask. The first one is found under Section 31, subsections 5 to 6, which talks about a candidate submitting defective information and all that you can use. And there is subsection 10 of Section 87, which says a person dissatisfied from the primaries process can approach the courts, and the courts can make appropriate orders. Now, that is one option which can be taken by a party who is dissatisfied.
Okay.
The other one, which is the more dangerous one, is the one that is quiet. And that is the fact that there is a judicial decision to the effect that you have no candidates as a party. And so when you say...
Never mind interpretations.
Never mind it.
Whatever the interpretation.
When you give your interpretation, the law does not depend on your interpretation. And when the courts are called upon to determine matters that will arise, they will rely not on your interpretation or INEC's interpretation, but on what the facts and the law are.
We'll be looking at it through legal spectacles.
Strictly.
Tunde in Abuja, I beg your pardon. Good morning.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Thank you for calling in, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah.
And good morning to your guest.
Good morning, Tunde.
Yes, sir. Please, I really love the discussion, but I discovered that there's a precedent concerning what happened in the River State.
Yeah.
You remember in Anambra State, the same thing happened, that the faction that Stella Odua and the PDP faction that Stella Odua and Andy Uba and one other person emerged from was nullified, but still they are still in the Senate. So what do you have to say to that?
Okay, Tunde, thank you very much. So,
Yeah.
legal brickmanship is
coming in. Now, if you look at the River State case, intra-party disagreement led to a judicial nullification of the process leading to selection of candidates, which is the fact now, meaning process did not take place, primaries did not take place
in the eyes of the law.
The party has even admitted, okay, we have studied the judgments, we are going to reconduct the congresses, which is an admission.
Yes.
But I'm going to keep the benefit that came from the congresses. We are not going to reconduct that one, which is their personal view. But when the court is finally called upon, what will be before the court? And the court will be called upon not by party members. This is what needs to be noted. The dispute over which these facts will be reviewed will be dispute between the party and contending parties at the election. The election will not be between factions of APC. It will be between an APC candidate, quote and unquote, and other parties. So the dispute will be between them and another party. And what the court will be asked to do is, look at the facts. These people were not candidates for election. They did not participate in. They will ask you to hold that they were not candidates for this election and they did not participate. Look at the judgment, the substituting judgment of the High Court that nullified their election. And they are supposed to do a different thing, which they did not do. And the court, of course, will agree with that. The court is not going to say, party leaders, what did you think? What is your opinion of this? INEC, what is your position? INEC is simply saying the other two processes, Section 31 and Section 87, sub 10, have not been followed. But that has nothing to do with the validity of candidates. The other parties will say validity of candidates and the so even if you win the election, you hand it over to your opponent.
Okay, let's go over to Spain now. Tony, good morning.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for calling in.
God bless you so much. I want to make a contribution, please.
Please, go ahead.
It's so clear. The associate prof, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
It's so clear. You've clearly, explained the way things should go. It's just unfortunately that we live in a country that people don't obey. People want to show that every party, everyone wants to show their machismo, but it's not like that. It's so clear on this matter. Even I was so shocked the legal advisor of the party just to on his own interpretation or whatever. And you're right, that's straight enough. At the end of the day, his interpretation doesn't matter. It's what the court stands, what the law says.
Yes.
That at the end of the day, we prevail. I thank you so much, Associate Prof. It's so clear. You make it, when we follow suit, the way things should be. Nobody will be split over a simple matter. We should learn how to follow what the law says.
All right, then.
Nigeria is the most populated black nation. For every 6 black men, Nigerians are 2. We should learn how to live with presidents.
All right, then,
Thank
Tony.
you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for calling in, Tony. Richard, could I just sort of get from you why the judiciary in Rivers State has allowed matters to become the way it has become? Because between the High Court, the Court of Appeal, and the Supreme Court, well, the lead Supreme Court, that was everybody.
Yeah.
But between...
The Court of Appeal is also everybody, although
yes,
it has divisions.
It has divisions.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily people from that place.
But what I'm getting at is that these are not watertight compartments of the law.
They are not.
So why is the judiciary system allowing this to happen? Or why did they allow it? Why did they allow it?
Father is looking at what has happened and why did it happen and all that.
Yes.
I'm going to take this question and bearing in mind that we are talking of what are the options.
Yes.
And I had confirmed Dominic's option as one. And there is a second option. I'll go back to it when I answer.
As a matter of fact, Dominic has called back. Reverend Dominic, he didn't...
Was it Dominic?
It wasn't Dominic, it was Abiodun in Zaria. But now Dominic is back. Reverend Dominic.
Good morning again.
Hi. Good morning again.
Good morning, your guests.
Good morning, Dominic. Well done.
I think your guests have done justice to the topic. But what I was trying to say before. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
What I was trying to say before is to buttress the point of Brother George. And I want to take it off from River State. I'm a good sympathizer of APC. I don't have their card. How are we going to go into 2019 election? There's trouble in Port Harcourt. There's trouble in Ogun State. There's trouble in Osun State. There's trouble in Zamfara State. There's trouble in Imo State where I come from. There's a piece of graveyard in Lagos. Remember, it was the crisis of PDP in 2014-15 that brought APC. Why has our leaders done nothing for all these things? How are we going to fight this strong opposition with all these crises everywhere? Yori, I told you here when Oshimole came as a chairman, I told him that Oshimole will not excel because the people he is going to deal with is our brothers, governors who are monsters, who thought they are the one who owns the party and nobody owns it. And look at what is happening today. Their own party chairman today are reporting to DSS. How are we going to go into election? The only person I pity in this situation is President Muhammad Buhari. And he's not taking charge of anything. That's the purpose of it. Most of us who fought for this party, who want to change, and who brought change actually, are crying in our hearts. Because if case not taken, 2019 will be something we will not be able to talk about. May God help us.
Amen. And thank you very much. So in this conversation, we want to stay on the law, and you were prescribing that in the eyes of the law, how can this, you started that, but yes, please. In the eyes of the law, because right now you said that in the eyes of the law, there are no candidates.
There are no candidates. There are no party structures in the state. Now, party chairman has said concerning party structures, we are going to conduct congresses, even though that's another matter, because he has an appeal before the Court of Appeal. So are you going to conduct to change the scenario when the Court of Appeal is still sitting on the matter? That is, again, is another contempt, like the subsequent one that took place in the earlier matter. So what is the solution? What can APC do? We have looked at something which the gentleman, Abiodun, who called him from Zaria, which is something the party can do, an affected party can do. Second one is what...
remind us, what?
No, that's the one he said they should go to court and ask the court to declare, yes.
And remove and withdraw a certain
exactly.
name.
That is for what a party can do. Now, you also realize that there were two congresses, there were parallel congresses. Both congresses were done in accordance with the decision of APC, direct and indirect. One was done by the default mode, which involves all party members. The other one was done indirectly, which involves use of delegates elected in those congresses that the law said did not take place. Now, what has happened to the second the parallel Congress? Because if you look at the law, all that is required for conducting a direct primary is contained in section 87, subsection 3. Only one condition, that the party should ensure that all aspirants have the opportunity of being voted for by members of the party. Simple. All the other things that you see in subsection 4 down relate to where a party chooses indirect primaries. And that is one that was not available to this party now because of the legal scenario that they had. So if the other Congress is not affected, much as they won't like it, it is an option open to them because it's an internal party decision to decide whether or not they will field or adopt a particular primaries. Now that the courts have spoken and nullified one, they have the other.
Okay, one more. Paul in Makurdi.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning, Uncle Yuri.
Good morning, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning.
Morning, Paul. Citizen Paul, good morning.
Thank you. Please, there was a question they asked you
Yes.
about the congresses that produced Senator from Anambra.
Anambra State.
Yes. And the senator, the professor did not give enough explanation. It was the same intra-party
problem
that they went to court and the court nullified, sacked the entire ESCO. But the senators remain senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria today. So is the case different from that of Rivers State?
Is the case out of the Supreme Court?
If the case went up to Supreme Court, the Supreme Court that nullified the ESCO of the party that produced those candidates
Yes.
at the flag bearers of the party.
Yes.
But the candidates, the people are still senators. They will not remove as
So
senators because those people that were not supposed to be the ESCO elected them through their primaries, which was the same as what APC did in Rivers State.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Paul. You want the professor to comment on that?
Now, you know what is critical is what the law says. Once the judges have ruled, whatever happens after the judgment is a function of perversion or failure of another officer. As you will observe, the court did not rule that they should remain. The court nullified the process. Something was supposed to happen. The executive was supposed to implement the decision of the court. The House itself was supposed to take cognizance of it and take necessary actions. So those were post-adjudication actions that failed, not the action of the court.
Okay, but
the court did this one and upheld what the law is.
Is that failure not something of, unless there are very strict parameters for the concept of contempt of court?
Yes.
Unless, because when you say there are failures after the judgment,
yes, implementation,
it means that your actions can effectively, you can get away with ignoring the court.
In certain circumstances, especially at the legislature, with this highly bipolar legislature we have now, where you have almost equal strength of the opposition, leading opposition party and the party in government. A lot of things are happening, yes.
Unfortunately.
A lot of things are unfortunately happening. But what is critical for us and what we need to work with, because we are not dealing with a place that has that protection.
Yes.
If you look at the governorship scenarios, you don't have a situation where the Supreme Court ruled the governorship matter and the wrong person is still in that position. No, you don't.
You don't have.
Yes.
Mazi Okoroafo, in Arochukwu, good morning.
Good morning, Sayori. Good morning again in the studio.
Yes.
Good morning.
Honestly, Sayori, what we see in Port Harcourt today is very, very short. It's not healthy for the party. Why am I saying this? Because we judge the same thing that is happening in Owerri. Now, if you compare Owerri and Port Harcourt, there's no difference. Now, you ask yourself, why is it going on like that? Because this issue of Godfather, that the party belongs to me, everything I would dictate the way it should go, which is very, very wrong. That is why we normally talk about this issue of internal democracy for a party. And for we to move forward in a country like ours, we shouldn't be dictating how the party will run. It's not good. Now, everybody saw what happened in the U.S. between Trump and the Democrats and Republicans. We saw what happened.
Yes.
At the end of the day, Trump stand his ground on what he's committed to do. Trump scored over 68, above 60 as a president. But if you look at what is going around, going around the Trump, people that decided Trump, they are not the fact, but the main people that Trump are people that are supporting the Trump. But you see the criticism going on. So what I'm suggesting at them, and Rivers State, they should call a spade a spade. What the party wants is what the state must stick to. Not an individualistic activity. We will not take that in this country. Individuals, keep it aside. What the party wants to go on. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Mazi Okoroafo. It'll be interesting to see how the party comes up. But I was more interested, we in the program were more interested in understanding the legal conundrum that is on the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
How the partisan, the party will come and look at it and we'll see that. But what, especially as people are now contributing that these things, there are other areas where they're getting away with it, and you've explained that, well, it's unfortunate, but it is the society and the environment in which we live.
The courts did not decide differently in those cases. The courts are in tandem with the interpretations we are giving here about what the situation is. And then I made that distinction that is legislature and that is intra-party. The contest APC is going to face from this conundrum, it's not intra-party. It's going to be inter-party.
And so it has to be. That's why I said at the beginning
that... So it's completely different.
I said, Prof, that this is a knot that has to be untied.
And I said, did you understand that there is a knot?
If they are aware that there is a knot. What did you mean by that? If they are aware that there is a knot. We're talking about a legal knot, right?
Yes, legal knot. If the party was aware that there is a legal knot, they cannot be doing what they are doing, which for me is like committing suicide. It's like burying your head.
But they have a legal advisor.
I'm talking of the legal advisor advice, which they have also accepted. It's like burying your head in the sand like an ostrich and believing that because you are not seeing any other thing, that the world is not seeing the big body of the ostrich. The legal position is there. There is no running away from it. The only solution is legal. And in fact, I need to stress that matters have left where party can decide, because there is a judicial pronouncement annulling.
And that is important. It's like that part of it, you can't take that out of the equation.
You can't take it out. It's not something that the party can negotiate anymore. Negotiating within the party could have solved this problem before it got to that stage. But the matter has left that stage now.
Did you want to comment earlier, Prof, on why there are these contradictory within the legal system, I mean the judicial...
Actually, there was no contradiction.
Okay.
Yes, there was no contradiction. Section 46 of the Constitution gives the High Court power to receive complaint from anybody that feels that his rights are being violated or has been violated. And it is this section that everybody who feels I have been wrongfully excluded from where I have a legitimate right to participate runs to. And that gives the High Court power to make any relevant decisions to give remedy to that person. So that was invoked by the persons who were unlawfully excluded. That was legitimate.
Yes.
The court's decision or the court's action in that respect was also consistent with the due procedure of law. If there is a twist here, it is that stay of execution granted by the Court of Appeal.
Okay, one moment, because Semant in Wari, if I got that name right, is waiting to join the conversation. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Wari.
Mr. Wari, I like it. I like the sound of it. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Yori.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in.
Good. I am enjoying the discussion. It only exposes what is happening in this country. APC actually came into power not by merit, but by, if you like, protest vote. And they thought maybe, they can just continue and enjoy the same benefit in the next coming election without doing anything. The same thing could take this power out from them, protest vote, and return it back to where it came from or to another person. If there is a protest, not necessarily because the person merits it, but I'm happy that the law is explaining this thing very clearly. For the fact, with what the law is saying, the guest is saying now, it is clear that neither here nor there is anybody doing anything properly. So I think the political class needs to learn this, that everything is guided by law, so that, our democracy can be strengthened. Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in. The party, as you said, has said that indeed we're going to have to reconduct
congresses. But we are going to keep this one.
That is the twist there. But some of the benefits, some of the creations of what in the eyes of the law doesn't exist will stay. Some of their creations, Abi.
No, it cannot.
No, I know it cannot.
But that is their reasoning.
It cannot.
Perhaps that is what informed their position.
So maybe, Comrade Adams, Oshiomhole, and all the other party leaders have their work cut out for them. How this logjam is going to be resolved. Otherwise, as Mr. George, our first caller, said, it's like APC doesn't have anything as of this moment.
It's not like APC doesn't have any candidate for any position in the election.
And that's not an acceptable.
In the eyes of the law.
That's not an acceptable
and
position
APC
for any party.
APC can have a candidate, but they will have to deal with the issue of pride. That parallel primary is not invalid, unlike this one that was invalidated by court. It's invalid because court said it's invalid. And the party can adopt it.
But now that you've gone there, a whole matter of a parallel primary,
yes.
It usually has a kind of ring to it of troublemakers, usurping the system.
It's about absence of harmony.
Okay.
You remember parties are in court. There is an order. This whole problem could have been solved by the party. It's the problem of failure of the party. Now, let's ask, what if the party has stuck to the position that it took at NEC, as even earlier implied for Rivers State, that Rivers State will go by direct primaries? Do you know we will not have been speaking this grammar? If Tonye Cole and all the other persons who emerged from the primaries had emerged from a direct primary, that primary would not have been illegal. Because direct primary is primary done by members of the party. Even those delegates can vote, but they are not voting as delegates representing their constituencies. They are voting as bona fide members of the party, exercising their membership right. So if the party had thought out things properly, they should simply have done direct primaries in Rivers State, and they wouldn't have been in this debacle.
Well, there is time, a little time. I think the 17th was the date you mentioned.
17th.
They have a little time.
17th. They have a little time. If they recognize that there is need for time, because their position right now, the official position right now is, we are okay, there is no problem. So, as I said earlier, if they proceed with that impression, they will go into the election, score 100%, and their opponent only needs to come a distant second to go to court and draw the attention of the court. Look at this judgment. These people were not in this election, and the court will agree. Because in the eyes of the law, they are not in the election. They will lose all the positions from governorship to the last position in House of Assembly to the party that comes second.
I want to thank you very much, Richard. Richard Aduche Nwokocha, for explaining it to us, because sometimes these things get quite arcane and you don't really know what's going on. But now I suppose we need to hear from the APC.
You need to.
We need to hear from them. In due course, we will, because they have already pledged to have to reconduct congresses there. Richard Aduche Nwokocha is Associate Professor of Law at Rivers State University. And I want to thank you very much for coming on this morning and explaining it to us.
Pleasure.
So that's our program. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Iyori Folani. Bye-bye for now.